Good evening, everybody. I'm Arvind, and we are back with one more class. And the precursor to this, yesterday, if you remember, I discussed a word called precursor, and today we are going to use it again. The precursor to this was found in one of our previous classes, where we discussed as to how to write formal essays or essays in general. Today, we are going to dive a bit deeper and find out about variety of essays, or at least try and understand one particular type of essay, which is personal essay, and how to approach it. Before we start this, I'd like to recommend you one particular writer who is incredibly famous across the globe for his personal essays, and that is James Baldwin. Now, I'll give you the compliment that majority of the viewers are thorough and coherent with in respect to what a personal essay is and how to write it, and some of you may even have a certain inclination towards writing one of your own. And if there are people who are bereft of that acquaintance, then this class is specifically for them. But even the former batch may not get hopeless, as they might come across something new which they didn't know earlier, and that particular newness may provide them the impetus, the boost to invigorate their interest. Because many a times it happens in our lives wherein we lose touch with our hobbies, with our interests. So it is incredibly required for us to sort of revive that bit of interest. So today, for the people, for the viewers who are already thorough with what a personal essay is, maybe it is a bit of revision of their hobby, and maybe they will think more intensely about it in case they have been losing touch. Now, a personal essay. There are certain aspects to a personal essay, which in other words are prerequisites for one to write a personal essay on his own. What are those factors? Considering we are bounded by the limitation of time, we today will explore one such factor, which I believe happens to be the most important factor, the numero uno of all the factors. Now, this word numero uno means number one. If you like this word, write it somewhere and make sentences on it. So there are n number of factors which serve as a set of prerequisite for one to come up with their own essay. But as I've already stated, we don't have all the time in the world. So we'll discuss one factor which perhaps is a tad bit more important than rest of the others. Now, what is that factor which will propel and prompt a mere mortal, a diminutive human being with blood and flesh, with as many veins in their body as all of us do, to start writing a personal essay? Now, what is that trigger? It, my viewers, is a fire in the belly. It is a certain intensity, which could be both a propensity or a predisposition to a certain subject. In simple words, when there is a topic, or there is a subject, or there is anything of any nature which troubles you, which puts you in a position of a bit of bother, and you constantly, incessantly think about it, and you just cannot stop or find a halt in that cyclic process of thinking. Let me make it more simpler. If you have been perturbed, affected, or moved by caste bias, which has plagued our nation for centuries and unfortunately continues to do so, if not in the more prominent areas, but still in the heartland, in the rural areas. And if you felt that this caste system is an extreme form of hatred, and you have been perturbed, and you simply cannot wrap your head around it as to how a person can decide to be condescending to another only on the basis of their caste. Now that becomes an issue that you develop an aversion to. Now that aversion does not stop as a mere aversion, but it continues, it mushrooms, it starts simmering inside of you, and all you think about is the castes, or the caste bias, or the caste system. And then you can't think of anything else, but you want to write about it. You want to give a voice to that aversion that you have developed. You want to let everybody around you know that you have a predisposition against this. Or if it's something else, if it's the idea of motherhood or fatherhood that has always piqued your interest or has always hit you, and you found it fascinating as to how selfless a love fathers have for their children or mothers have for their children, and you have gone beyond the conventional understanding of fatherhood and motherhood, and you have begun to study it on a meticulous level, then you start to write about it. And don't conflate it with a general commentary. You write about your personal experiences. You write about your own stories, not the episodes which have generally taken place, but your personal stories. Therefore, you have the license to employ an informal language, a language that is your own. And as I stated yesterday, language at times can be the cheapest tool to convey our innermost feelings, and at times the most outstanding one. So it's totally up to you. So when you write a personal essay, first step is to identify as to what you are perturbed by or influenced by, as to what you have developed a critical outlook for, or what you have developed a never-ending love for, and you explore it a little bit more. And you find stories on your own. Your own experiences will become evidence here, or will support your essay. There is no field work, there is no thesis, there is no going here and there. You don't have to be under anybody's tutelage. It is the commentary of your own personal experiences, of your own thoughts. So that is what a personal essay is, and let's dive into the anatomy and the mechanism of it a little bit more. In the meantime, you may think about things which have left you affected, which have left you perturbed. It could be a critical outlook, the things that you feel are corrigible and they require an immediate overhaul. For example, I just talked about the caste bias that pervades, if not in the prominent areas, but does in the rural areas. And if you've seen that happen right before your eyes and you have developed an aversion to it, then you write about that particular story, because that is definitely corrigible. And you can write down in the comment box if there is something that you have developed an aversion or propensity for. And you definitely, if you have an instinct for writing. Writing a personal essay can be a therapeutic and reflective experience. Here's a step-by-step guide to help you get started. Now, apologies in advance because we are going to digress a bit. This word therapeutic. Now, for learners who have just begun to learn English, this may jump out at them, but do not be decombobulated or flummoxed. This word basically is related with therapy. If you've heard of therapy, this is therapeutic, something that gives you a relief that therapies provide. Something akin to that, something that could be held tantamount to therapy. So, essay can be a therapeutic and reflective experience. Here's a step-by-step guide to help you get started. Now, you can use this word in your sentence. What else is therapeutic for you? For example, I and a lot of my friends, we love reading. So whenever we read a new book or read an essay or read an article, we feel therapeutic. So if there's something that you feel therapeutic about or therapeutic after doing that, then you can make a sentence on your own. Now coming back to the topic, choose a topic. Select a significant event, experience or person that has shaped your life. It is a personal essay. Therefore, the topic can be one of your pet topics. And as I have stated when we began or commenced upon today's lecture, I said it has to be something which is extremely personal to you, something that you love or something that you feel strongly against. Now, we'll go today example by example and choose a topic, select a significant event, experience or person that has shaped your life. Now, lately, I was narrated a story by a close friend of mine, and that story has been the most baffling story of my life. And why do I say that? Because that actually happened in flash, in essence. Every time I say that happened in flash basically means it really happened. It happened in reality, in real time. So, now coming back to the topic, that actually happened in real time, and the story was narrated to me by a close friend, almost a brother to me. Therefore, the story has utmost credence. And the story goes, if I have to choose a topic, I'm going to choose that particular story that I've recently heard. And why do I choose that? Because it is, as I've already used the word baffling, you may also try and use the word baffling. It is one of the most, or the most rather, baffling story that I've ever heard. And it has a certain horror element to it. And since my early childhood, we have been immensely attracted to horror. That has been one of our go-to genres every time we discussed affairs, every time we discussed stories, every time we discussed scenarios. So horror was our favorite one. Therefore, if I have to choose a topic, I have to choose a topic that makes circles in my mind, that has me enthralled, that I feel strongly for. So this was one event that was narrated to me by my friend, and I think strongly for it. Now, what was that event? That event was almost a horror story which is tailor-made for any of the movies that you have watched, and it will scare you more than anything that you watched. So, I'll tell you a little bit about that story. There is a particular building in the town that I reside in, Udaipur, in other words, will not name names. So that building has a particular floor which has a tap that is ever running. And not ever running, rather, there's a specific time of the day, 12:45 at night, where the tap starts running on its own. And two of the best friends of this close friend of mine went to that building. They tried to close the tap. Although they were warned, rightly warned, to not touch the tap, as whosoever touches the tap, something unfortunate, unpleasant, rather otherworldly happens to them. But these two didn't listen, and they defied the caution which was provided by their onlookers, and then they tried to fiddle with the tap. And then what threw the wrench in the tasks? When they left the building, they met with a ghastly accident, and one has passed away, another one is perturbed or is affected or has incurred a permanent injury that will stay with him for the rest of his life. Now, whatever happened that night, it could be a coincidence, but it is one of the most baffling stories I've ever heard. Well, if I were to write an essay, that would be my topic. Now, what is one of the most baffling stories or event that you have heard or seen happen right before you? Think about it. Think strongly about it. And if it happened in distant past, then stress the faculties of your memory and try to recall it. And we go to the step number 2. Determine the purpose. The purpose, in other words, the purport, is another word for purpose. Purport. So, determine the purpose. What do you want to convey or explore in your essay? Now, since I am taking that story as a topic of my personal essay, now what do I wish to convey? I wish to convey a certain open-minded outlook towards things that are cosmogonic in nature, unfurling all around us, and how those things lack a scientific explanation. That is the purpose of my attempt to write this essay. That is what I'm trying to convey. Basically, there are things which are not explained, or we have faced a certain lack of aptitude, or we are facing a certain lack of aptitude in devising an apt explanation. So that's what I would like to convey through my essay, that we are falling short of explaining these cosmogonic, extracelestial, superhuman activities which unfold right before us. This is why I'll write the essay on that particular story that I have recently heard, and something that has ruffled my feathers and has been making circles in my mind. So why not write an essay on it and let everybody around me know it? So my purpose is that. Now, since there is an interplay in this session, so if you have decided the topic, as I've stated, it could be one of the most intriguing, baffling, bewildering, exciting thing that may have happened with you. You have to take that as the topic. And after that, you try and find the purpose. What is the purpose behind writing the essay on that particular event, story, experience, or philosophy, or ideology? My purpose is to draw that lack of explanation, scientific explanation, behind these activities that happen all around us, and we don't pay too much credence to that. Now, if your topic is one that of caste system, and if you have experienced an event by yourself, or maybe you saw something happen right before your eyes which could be ascribed to the grand old caste bias that we are plagued with as a nation, then After deciding that topic, let's say something happened right in front of you and somebody was kicked out of a room or was not allowed to enter a temple just because they belong to a caste which is unfortunately from the lower strata of society or lower strata of the caste hierarchy, and you saw that happen, and then you want to write about that particular story or that particular event that happened in flash. After you've decided that, what is the purpose? The purpose is you wish to project that something which should be a taboo by now or should have been redundant still pervades and is still handsomely coexisting with the society that is otherwise thriving and prospering and achieving unattainable tasks. So you want to draw that interesting juxtaposition between two prepositions that coexist and are exactly in opposition to each other. So that could be your purpose, or if you have some other topic, you will have a different purpose altogether. Step number 2 is to have that purpose, because that purpose is going to provide verisimilitude to your essay. Otherwise, it will be like a body without a soul. And a body without a soul is good for nothing. The essay has to have the spirit, and it will only have the spirit when you find your purpose and when you aptly word it and when your reader can also feel that purpose. Now we go to the step number 3. Brainstorm. Now these are the steps that you need to undertake before you take your pen, before you tear a paper off your notepad. First is you decide the topic, and as I've already stated, the topic has to be something that has been making circles in your mind, something that has left you affected, something that has stayed with you and is likely to stay with you for the rest of your life. And if something is likely to stay with you for the rest of your life, better give it the form of words so that people who will come after you will know of your thoughts. Once you have decided the topic, then you find your purpose, because there has to be a purpose, as it is akin to having a spirit. And anything without spirit and style is insubstantial and bland. So when you find the purpose, you find a spirit, or your essay finds a spirit. Now the third step is brainstorm. Jot down key memories, emotions and insights related to your topic. Now first we'll take into consideration the example that I had zeroed down to, which was the incident that I've heard. Now before directly smack dab getting inside it, let me brainstorm a little bit more. Had there been more incidents like the one that has left me absolutely puzzled or into bits? And if there are, I need to recall them. And at the same time, I need to recall the emotions that I felt when those events happened in real time. For example, a relative of mine and we were sleeping together. It is about my childhood, and we slept together, and he saw a shadow behind the curtains which tried to almost perform a dance behind the curtain, and he could see that silhouette of the person but never the person, and the curtains were moving as if it was a ballet dancer. And when the relative saw it, he started shrieking. So that one incident that I remember. And what was the emotion? The emotion was of absolute fright. I was petrified to the jot. Now I have gotten my emotion and I have gotten another story. Can I think of another story? Yes, I can. Then I'll have to recall that story as well and think of that emotion. So I have not just one example, but married examples to support my essay and to invigorate its essence. Now, if caste system is one, and if you've recently been affected by one incident, then you think of variety of other incidents that are of the same nature. And if you can't recall them, and if you haven't had many experiences of that nature, then you Google it, find out about such incidents. And then what emotion do you feel while your research is underway? When you hear multiple stories from people who have been at the receiving end of caste bias, you will feel that emotion at a deeper level. And suddenly, your essay, which in the beginning was wondrous and was singular, finds this pluralism, finds layers, and becomes complex, convoluted, and thought provoking. So, that you can do: brainstorm, create an outline, organize your ideas into an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Now, considering we are talking about the personal essay, and here, right at its center, is the example that I started the lecture with. And let's pursue that. So, I'll have these: one introduction, after an introduction, main body paragraph 1, main body paragraph 2, and a conclusion. Now, in the introduction, I'm going to provide a cursory glance to my reader as to what the following paragraphs will have or will constitute of. So, I could start my introduction. In this personal essay, I, Arvind, will explore and extrapolate my own innermost thoughts, which I have felt in every little vein of mine, which have rushed in my senses amok from a very tender age, and the pace of that rushing has only gone up as I get older. Therefore, I can no more scoop the courage to suppress that, and I'm going to do the insurmountable, which is to write them. So that is my introduction. Because it is a personal essay, I can exploit my creative prowess as much as I want to. It's no holds barred. There are no parameters, no set of rules, nothing. Yet, you must have heard of this old saying: there's madness in love, but there is method to madness. You go mad when you write a personal essay, but you still have to have that method in the madness. So that was the introduction. My main body paragraph 1 will talk about the most baffling case that I've recently heard, and I'm going to go into the details of it. And my feelings are of utmost importance. Feelings in general can be relegated into the periphery and not given any credence to, because it is a personal essay and it is self-explanatory that my feelings or the feelings of the personal essays are of the utmost importance, are paramount, are numero uno, and he need not worry and express them to the very hilt with utmost exuberance and desire. So, my body paragraph 1. How will I start that? Since my early childhood, I had a strong fascination with ideas which weren't commonplace, ideas which couldn't be explained by us mere mortals, nor by God, nor by the intellectuals, in other words, scientists, or people from other areas of academics. It could be a professor, engineer, whatever. And I've always pondered upon that with, now as I've said, feelings are utmost importance, with intrigue. And recently a case happened wherein I was again reintroduced to this side of mine which was riddled in inquisitiveness, in a desire to unfurl, unravel the complicated, complex, ever complex topics which are inexplainable. And we are incapacitated whenever we resort to an explanation. And then I give details of this event. I basically uproot the entire event. And as a surgeon, I pick upon everything. As I've said, there's method in madness. As a surgeon, I try and dissect every other angle of that story. But it is extremely important to always juxtapose yourself, to always provide a place to an opposition argument. Although it is a personal essay and you have given the license to go mad, to go ravenous, go no holds barred, still you are required to have that little window left for some degree of rationale. So now, how do I contradict my claims that I strongly feel for? Although there is a section of society, in other words, intellectuals, who feel that the correlation in between these incidents is concocted by us human beings arbitrarily, as it is pure coincidence and there is no interplay between these two set of incidents, and they should be dismissed as a mere coincidence, and we are doing a disservice to our faculties of contemplation by thinking too much about these things. So I have to have that particular opposition or opposing argument find a place in my personal essay, right in my body paragraph 1. So I don't sound absolutely lopsided. It provides for that sharp relief for a reader who is not in parlance with my ideas. It is for that reader who may have a different school of thought. So we have to entertain them as well. Yet we come back to our ideology. We again restate which side are we on. So you can use the word yet. Still, I would use yet. Yet, the 12-year-old, 11-year-old child in me is not convinced, and he still chases the extra celestial. He still chases that extra bit of explanation which he hasn't found, and will continue chasing that. And in my body paragraph 2, I'll write about variety of incidents which have happened in my childhood, which were of the similar nature. And then I reach a conclusion. A conclusion again is basically a compilation of two different school of thoughts which are at loggerheads. One is my opinion, another is an opinion of the opposition side. People who think that there's nothing paranormal in the world, there's nothing superhuman, everything that happens in a vacuum, and we are almost eccentric to think otherwise. So that will be my conclusion, wherein I will create a medley of these two oppositions, and there I have my personal essay ready. So you have to have a method, and this is the method. You first think of an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. And if your topic is caste system, in your first main body paragraph, at its heart will be the most baffling event in your life which made you feel that there is a caste bias in India or anywhere in the world, any nook and corner of the world wherein you felt there is a class difference or caste difference, whatever. Then still you have to give that opportunity for the opposition argument to find a place in your body paragraph 1. You will say, although in the better areas of our country, caste system is increasingly becoming more and more redundant, and it would be safe to say that to a large degree the same is extirpated, as people are allowed to go to the temples, people are becoming lodgers from the lower strata of caste system in the houses of people from the high caste. So you give these points, and again you come back to your motive, MORTIF, not the motive, motive. The motive of the essay is your bewilderment towards this caste bias. You come back to it again, yet when I stand to take notice, it is still a critical issue, as majority of the Indian population reside in rural areas, and there this particular taboo is at play in its most ghastly avatar. That's how you write it. And then your body paragraph 2, wherein you make a medley of small or incidents which you have seen happen right before your eyes, or stories that you have heard which solidify the claim that there does exist a certain aversion amongst the high caste people towards their fellow beings who unfortunately belong to the lower strata of caste system. And then you draw a conclusion wherein you talk about how things have gotten better, how things are evolving, and how it still needs improvement. So that you retain your motive of the play, MORTIF, and not motive. You Google it right away and understand the discrepancy between motive and motive. Do not conflate the two. Even if I'm sounding as if I'm pronouncing motive, I'm not pronouncing motive. I am trying to enunciate motive, MORTIF. Find its meaning and start using it. Write your introduction, introduce your topic, provide context, and include a thesis statement. Now, how will you write it? It totally depends upon you. My introduction could be 2 pages or 500 words. I'll journey back, or I could start smack dab right in the middle of the story that I heard, which baffled me. Or I could start from the very beginning, from the incipient phase, when I started to develop this inquisitiveness towards activities which weren't explainable, or which I wasn't, or I didn't have the efficacy to explain, or others around me didn't have the efficacy to explain. So I can find my own way of introducing my essay, and so could you. Whichever style piques your interest. If you directly start talking about the topic, I would say that is a better way, because the world is becoming extremely pacey and we are consuming. It's a world which is run by the reels or the TikTok videos, wherein our attention span is shrinking by day. So it's better to engage your reader right at the word go. So it's better to start your introduction by exposing your reader to the event that has left you aghast, right? So that's how you started. Provide context, wherein you give details as to what you're going to talk about in the introduction. As I've already said, in this essay of mine, I am this, and I have been left affected, perturbed, or aghast by this particular event that happened right in front of me, and this is what I'm going to discuss. Is caste system still a ghost that haunts us? That could be your thesis statement. If you're talking about caste system. If I'm talking about paranoia, then I will recall a very famous line, that is it true, or does this event provide verisimilitude to the line or to the it's a very famous statement. I'm not able to recall the name of the person who said this, that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was the denial of its existence. So that could be my thesis statement. That is our incessant denial of devil's existence, is that his greatest trick. That could be my thesis statement. And include a thesis statement, which we have already done, and we already discussed it at length in the beginning of this essay. Write body paragraphs, use vivid descriptions, dialogue, and reflection to explore your topic. Now, if I'm writing a body paragraph on the story that I've heard through my friend, then I have to use words, vocabulary that makes the scenario, the incident, or the story, or the event extremely vivid. When the reader reads it, he should be able to imagine what I had seen or heard. I should write it in a manner like that, wherein he gets exactly what I want to convey. Vivid descriptions. How would you do that? On this day, two young men in their early 20s went to a building which is infamous for or notorious for activities that are beyond our imagination and explanation. This will be the language that I'll resort to so that it becomes extremely translucent, vivid, and comprehensible for the reader so that he is able to recreate the scenario. So your language has to be extremely clear, almost immaculate. Dialogue. You have to speak to the reader. You have to speak to the reader in a way that it creates a sudden bond wherein the reader is enthralled into your writings. He is in the sway of it and he's bottled. How would you do it? My reader, bear with me. My reader, don't stop reading. Continue as the twist has just started. Dear reader, hold on. Do not blink your eyes. Don't yawn. Kindly continue with me as the next part is going to pique your interest the most. So when you use these words or these gestures, your reader can't go anywhere. He's like a rabbit caught in the headlights. So you have to use words which personally engage the reader or gestures and expressions which personally engage the reader. Even if you're not an efficient writer, even if your vocabulary isn't as broad or as eclectic, you can still resort to these gestures to create that personal interplay between yourself and the reader. So that is one thing that you can do, and reflection to explore your topic. That basically means going into extreme detail and also creating an argument. As I've already said, you have to find reservations within yourself in regards to the topic that you feel strongly for. And those reservations, be it coming from the outside world or internal, you have to write them in your essay. For example, if you yourself are unsure, if I have picked up a topic of paranormal activities and I'm, as an educated person, I'm also in a dilemma whether or not these things happen. So I have to reflect upon that, the dilemma that I have. I'm not extraordinarily sure or certain that such things do happen, but there is a doubt inside of me which has stayed with me. So I'm just reflecting upon that doubt. As I've already stated, you have to keep a little window open for the opposition argument to find a place in your essay. And that is basically what this means. Use sensory details, incorporate sensory language to bring your story to life. What do you mean sensory? Something that is sensational. Have you heard of the word goosebumps? If I'm talking about these events that I've just discussed, or if I'm writing about them, then the language that I need to resort to should give goosebumps to my readers. Through a wrench in the task is one such phrase. Excuse me. And then the tap started running. Bang! At 12:45, the tap started running. They both climbed onto the tap, made valiant efforts to close it, and stop the flow of the water. But the euphoria wasn't to last. The tap never stopped flowing. So when I use this language, I create a sensation. Or when anybody uses that language and I hear that, I get goosebumps. And there is a sensation that gets spawned at the hands of that language employed by them. And because of this sensation, your reader will develop a sense of engagement and he'll try to finish the essay. Or at least you will be better poised to convey the motive of your essay. Again, I've used the word motive. Please try and find its meaning and do not conflate it with motive. So, again, coming back to the topic, sorry for digressing. So, language which is sensory provides a layer to your essay and it doesn't remain skin deep. The reader will read it fully and also you'll be better poised to write your essay in a way that is better than writing it normally without writing the sensory or without using the sensory details. In Hindi it's called sansani. So you have to use that language. There is a sher which has sensory language. Majnu is also named Cass. He's got another name, Cass. And the sher, I'm forgetting the shair's name and forgive me for that. So the sher is, now we all know the backstory. Majnu was madly in love with Layla, and when he couldn't realize his love, he ran away, eloped to the forest and deserts and whatnot. So the sher is, कैस अकेला है जंगल में मुझे जाने दो, खूब जमेगी जब मिल बैठेंगे दीवाने दो. So that is sensory detail which evoke your senses and prompt you to read the essay a bit more. Show vulnerability, share your emotions, fears and growth. This is one aspect. Write a conclusion, as we've already stated. Summarize your insights and reiterate your thesis statement. Revise and edit. Obviously, revision is paramount and always revise it. For clarity, coherence and grammar. Use a conversational tone, be honest and authentic, use descriptive language, explore your emotions, keep it concise, use active voice, get feedback from others. Personal essay structures, chronological, tell your story in the order it happened. You have to be mindful of that. Thematic, explore a specific theme or idea, we've already discussed that. Reflective, focus on what you learned or how you grew, what you learned out of it. Now, in some of the essays, you may not require this because the kind of essay that I'm writing upon or I've used as an example, there's nothing that I learned or grew out of it. So you can't reflect much upon it. But when we take caste system into account, there's a lot to reflect. There's a lot to learn and grow after exploring that essay. So you can definitely reflect a bit when your topic is a little sensitive, social or thought-provoking. Mine was sensory, something that gives you goosebumps because I'm more inclined towards those subjects. Remember, your personal essay should be a reflective and creative expression of your experiences and insights. Take your time and enjoy the process. Here we reach the twilight of the lecture today, and right behind me is what? A caboodle of scanners which will take you right away to all our social media platforms, and there with one click you'll be exposed to our catalog of courses that we are offering at Anushka. And if you are an aspirant of banking, UPSC or anything else, you may contact Anushka because it is the best in the business and they'll provide you with the best material, with the best faculty for your best growth. We'll be here tomorrow again. See you till then. Thank you.